Most nations are built around cities. Mongolia still begins with the land. Out here, the steppe shapes movement, daily life, and memory. The first thing you notice in Mongolia is space. Not empty space, but living space. Sky that feels wider than expected. Distances that seem to slow your thoughts. Silence that never feels dead. This is far more than a country of dramatic landscapes. What matters here is simpler and deeper. The land still influences ordinary life. Weather changes plans. Grass decides where animals feed. Distance affects how people move, gather, and stay connected. That quiet influence is everywhere. And once you feel it, Mongolia begins to make sense. Everything starts with the steppe. Long grasslands roll toward the horizon. Low hills rise and fall without breaking the openness. Wind crosses the country almost without obstruction. At a glance, the landscape can seem plain. Spend a little more time with it, and that impression disappears. People here read the land closely. They notice the strength of the grass, the dryness of the ground, the mood of the sky, the direction of the wind. Those details are not background. They help shape decisions. Animals depend on pasture. Families depend on animals. That means land still matters in a direct, practical way. City life teaches people to rely on systems built by humans. On the steppe, nature still keeps part of that authority. That is why Mongolia carries a different rhythm. Life here is not rushed in quite the same way. There is more watching, more waiting, more adjustment. Summer brings openness and movement. Winter brings pressure and discipline. Each season changes the rules. Seen from far away, the steppe may look quiet. For the people who know it, it is full of signals. That difference in perspective says a lot about Mongolia. Beauty is here, certainly, but beauty alone does not explain this place. What explains it is the fact that land still shapes decisions in real time. That is the foundation of everything else. One of the clearest expressions of that relationship is the ger. Elsewhere, a home usually means permanence, a fixed address, a structure meant to stay where it was built. On the Mongolian steppe, home followed a different logic. It needed to move. The ger was designed for that life. Portable, durable, warm, and efficient, easy to take down, easy to rebuild, strong enough for harsh weather, simple enough to travel. From the outside, it looks modest. Inside, it feels complete. The stove gives the space its center. Tea is poured nearby. Meals are prepared within reach. Children sit close to adults. Conversation, work, and rest all happen in the same shared circle. Nothing is excessive. Nothing is random. Every object has its place. Every part of the space serves life directly. That is what makes the ger feel so human. It is practical, yes, but never cold. The structure holds warmth in more ways than one. A moving home may sound temporary to outsiders, yet life inside a ger often feels grounded, intimate, and deeply settled. What matters here is not permanence in one location. What matters is continuity. Family, routine, memory, hospitality, those things travel. When it is time to leave, the house comes apart piece by piece, walls folded, poles gathered, felt packed, belongings secured. Then, somewhere else, it rises again. The steppe shapes more than shelter. It shapes rhythm. No symbol carries that more clearly than the horse. Across Mongolia, horses are part of daily life, not just national mythology. They belong to travel, herding, childhood, and skill. Many children learn to ride early. Movement becomes something physical, familiar, almost instinctive. That closeness to motion leaves its mark on culture too. Mongolian music often feels open in the same way the landscape feels open. Its phrasing has room in it. Its sound carries air, distance, and patience. The morin khuur, the horsehead fiddle, captures that beautifully. Its voice is raw, warm, and unmistakably human. Nothing about it feels polished for display alone. The instrument sounds lived in. Then there is Naadam. At first glance, it is a festival of spectacle. Racing horses, wrestling, archery, crowds, dust, heat, excitement. Look a little closer, and something else appears. These are not random traditions kept alive out of nostalgia. They come from skills that belong to life on open land. Balance, strength, endurance, control, discipline. That is why Naadam still feels alive. It does not feel borrowed from the past. It still belongs to the emotional world of the country. The same can be said for the horse, for the music, for the way movement remains tied to identity. Here, culture did not grow separate from the landscape. It grew out of it. That is what gives Mongolia's traditions their force. They still feel connected to the life that produced them. Mongolia's history is inseparable from its geography. In many countries, the past feels concentrated in cities, monuments, and museums. Here, it often stays close to the land. Places like the Orkhon Valley make that immediately clear. This is a landscape of memory, movement, and continuity. Empires rose from these grasslands. Routes crossed them. Power depended on mobility, distance, and the ability to live with open land rather than avoid it. What matters most is not only that history happened here. What matters is that the same environment that shaped older worlds still shapes daily life now. That continuity gives Mongolia unusual depth. The past does not feel sealed off. It remains close, almost within reach. You can sense it in valleys still used by herders, in open country where movement still defines life, in places where history seems less buried than carried forward. That does not mean Mongolia is unchanged. Far from it. But older patterns never disappeared completely. Memory here survives not only in monuments, but in habits, in routes, in forms of shelter, in ways of moving through land that still feel recognizable. For that reason, the grassland is more than scenery. It is also an archive. And once you see that, Mongolia begins to feel richer, older, and more continuous than its emptiness first suggests. Then the story turns toward Ulaanbaatar. The capital brings a very different energy. Traffic, towers, construction, noise, speed. Modern Mongolia is visible here from the first moment. Yet the city does not feel completely separated from the steppe. That older world still lingers. Sometimes on the edges of the capital, where Gyar districts remind you how recent many rural roots still are. Sometimes in family life, in food, in hospitality, in the emotional pull the countryside continues to hold. Ulaanbaatar matters because it shows Mongolia in transition. A younger country is building a new future here. People study, work, create, and move through a global world with growing confidence. At the same time, the past remains close, not as decoration, not as performance, as memory. That tension gives the capital its character. Urban growth is real. So is the question underneath it. How does a country modernize without losing the deeper rhythm that shaped it? Mongolia has not answered that fully. Maybe no country ever does. Still, Ulaanbaatar shows the attempt clearly. This is not a nation trapped in the past. Neither is it eager to erase where it came from. What you see instead is negotiation, movement toward something new, while older forms of life continue to exert their pull. That tension feels honest, and it makes Mongolia more interesting, not less. Return to the steppe after the city, and the meaning of the landscape becomes sharper. Now the open land feels less like scenery and more like explanation. The gyr makes more sense. The horse makes more sense. Music does too. Even the tension between old and new becomes easier to understand. Daily life here still follows patterns shaped by land. That truth appears in small things. Tea shared without hurry, children growing up close to work and animals, a meal prepared with what the day provides, a family watching weather as part of ordinary routine. Nothing about that means life is easy. Distance is hard. Winter is hard. Economic pressure is hard. Change is constant. Still, something remains steady. The steppe continues to give Mongolia its emotional center. It teaches patience, it rewards attention, it keeps movement, resilience, and closeness tied together. That may be why this country stays with people. Many parts of the world have reduced land to background. Here, it still shapes logic, not in theory, in daily life, and that changes how everything feels. Mongolia is beautiful, yes, but the lasting impression comes from something deeper, a sense that landscape still matters in visible ways, a sense that life here has not been fully separated from weather, space, animals, and season. That is rare now, and it is part of what gives Mongolia its quiet power. No single image can explain Mongolia. Not the horse, not the gyr, not the skyline, not even the steppe on its own. What matters is the connection between them. Land, movement, memory, shelter, change, all of it still linked. That is what makes this country feel so distinct. The ground beneath daily life still matters here. And maybe that is what stays with you most. Not only what you saw, but what you understood. A place where the horizon still shapes the people living beneath it. Mongolia is not just a destination. It is a reminder that life can still move with the land.